I wanted to bring on Kyndra Frazier, who is a therapist and a friend. We work on a number of things together. And so I just thought it would be a good opportunity for us to engage art through the lens of mental health. And so that all of us can begin to look at the art in our lives in new and creative ways, and perhaps gain some value from the conversation. As I mentioned, Kyndra Frazier's here. She is an amazing, exceptional therapist. She does a Movement Mondays live on Facebook every Monday. The thing's so good. She didn't ask for it. I used to just start sending her money. It was helping me so much back in the day. But she is an author in her own right, who is also a part of my upcoming book. She has numerous degrees behind her name, but I think, as my grandmother would say, the thing that makes you really you is, are you a good person? And she is a good person and doing a lot of great things in the world. So Kyndra, anything you want to tell everyone about yourself?
I just want to thank you all for showing up and for being present, and thank Najee for creating an opportunity for Romal and I to have this conversation with you. I think it is necessary to talk about art in this way, because so many mental health vulnerabilities have been exacerbated over these past couple of years. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with you all.
Great. So let's get to it. When we were discussing having this gathering, the first piece that came to mind for me was from Najee's Crossroads series. And I wanted that to be the imagery, because that series is one of my favorites. DK, if you could go ahead and share that image of the Crossroads. It's one of my favorites because in this series, it makes me reflect on the crossroads in life. But I would like for Najee to give us a little background on the Crossroads, who's in it, and the significance of that piece.
Well, just briefly, so Robert Johnson has become a tremendous muse of mine. Robert Johnson was a famous blues musician from the 20s and 30s. Crossroads being where 49 and 61 meet outside of Helena, actually around Clarksdale, Mississippi. And I grew up an hour and a half from there. Most people know of Robert Johnson and the folklore, supposedly selling his soul to be the baddest guitar player ever. But for me, I connected with the story because of locale, and also thinking about him being a creative. You know, he was a musician. All he wanted to do was play the guitar in a time when there was just, opportunities for Black people being sharecroppers and really not much more. He left everything that was familiar to him to pursue his passion of being the baddest guitar player ever. And I could relate to that just as an artist, and also growing up in that community, how, we never know what road is going to be what opportunities may unfold. We walk out on faith and pursuing our passion. And so that's why Robert Johnson and the Tale of the Crossroads is a familiar story and an important story for me.
Yeah, and that's significant in why I chose that piece. Even if you look at it now and you see him standing at this crossroads, when I look at it through the lens of my own journey in therapy, I am not a therapist. Kyndra is the therapist, but I got enough years in therapy. They should go ahead and just give me a license at this point, but at least another tax write-off. But when I look at the crossroads and I think about my own journey and what I've learned about my trauma, an inner city kid, and the things that have happened in my life and the life experiences and environments that shaped me, I find myself throughout this journey at different crossroads, making the decision to choose between the path that is guided by life-limiting beliefs that have been shaped by my trauma, who I believe I cannot be in the world, what I cannot do, what other people said, how challenging life is. If I base my decisions on those things, it takes me down one path. But if I look at life through the lens of the fact that I'm not my past and I'm not my pain, and that there is a divine calling on my life, that it has purpose and meaning, and that what happened to me only continues to happen if I allow it to, and I can shift my thoughts away from my past and focus more on my purpose and my healing and who I desire to be in the world. That then allows me to choose the other path, more of a road that will require least resistance. And so in life, I just find that we stand at these various crossroads, and our choices and decisions are oftentimes based on the story we have accepted as true about ourselves. And that can be a liberating and life-giving truth, or that can be one that's stagnating. And we stand at this precipice where we get to choose. And so those were some of my initial thoughts when I look at the piece. Obviously, the vibrance of color, the layers, the textures in it, and I love a lot of color, but the significance of it is that crossroads moment that I think we have more often than we tend to realize. Kyndra, is there anything you would like to share?
Absolutely. When I think of art in general, I think of Winnicott and him introducing the term transitional object. Art often is a transitional object, and so many of us are in transition. There are those of you that have joined that are at a crossroads, possibly, whether that is a crossroads of your emotions or a crossroads of transition into a new workplace, or crossroads just in terms of what you want to do in life. And I believe when I look at this painting, I'm thinking about him needing to make a choice. And oftentimes when we are at a crossroads in life, we are wanting to make the right choice. And I think that art allows us to suspend our thinking brains that can get in the way sometimes of us taking a step forward. Because I believe you mentioned God, Romal. I believe that no matter where we step, God is always going to meet us there. And I really can appreciate this piece, not only in terms of the crossroads that we see, but in terms of the color. When I look at these colors, they make me feel happy and excited. Art releases dopamine, and dopamine is a chemical that makes us feel happy. It makes us experience pleasure. It also reduces cortisol levels, which are those chemicals that are stress inducing. And so I appreciate how art can take us away from some of the challenges that we may be experiencing in the moment and allow us to see the beauty even in the midst of some of the difficulties that we might be going through. So I really appreciate this piece, Najee.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kyndra. I think as she pointed out, what art does to the body and mind and the emotional state. I want to let everyone know that in the chat, you will see several articles that you can reference those links. And they share some of the important facts around how art and mental health are connected, the value of it. Throughout those articles, what you will find that resonated with me, although it was a hard point because it says engage in the creative process and what it does for the body and the emotional state when you actually paint or draw or engage in the activity of creating art, how it calms the mind, how it distracts you from the thing that was stressing you. And then they also reference in many of them the value of going to places, and some of us are familiar with those art and wine kind of gatherings. They talk about the value of being in community with people, co-creating art. Just a quick story. Recently, I was having a bad day and hanging out with Najee at Black Art in America. And he just said, man, get in the car. We're going somewhere. And I was like, where are we going? He was like, man, just get in the car. So we ended up going to check out some art. It was just one piece. And the moment I saw it, my entire mood changed. We stood there for about 25 minutes looking at one piece of art and the various layers. And I was asking him questions and, not just about the artist, but also about how long did it take him and his process. And by the time we left, I just felt better. It was a distraction that was connected to something that I absolutely love. I would do the piece an injustice if I tried to describe it. But before I pivot to Kyndra, Najee, would you tell them about the piece we went to see that day?
Yeah, I just want to let people know if they haven't seen it. It's a masterwork by the late great Louis Del Sar. Louis Del Sar was a phenomenal artist from New York. Spent a tremendous amount of years down here in Atlanta. Taught at Morris Brown and some of the schools here. He has a number of murals in New York as well as in Atlanta. But this particular one that I took Romal to is at Southwest Art Center. It's a must see, just like the King mural that he did downtown. But look up the work of Louis Del Sar if you're not familiar with him. That's LOUISDESLART. I put it in the chat. I'm sorry. By spelling, I graduated on the curve in English. But anyway, we'll move on.
Kyndra, I just wanted to pivot back to you in regards to some insights around art and mental health and the emotional impact that you had started sharing a moment ago.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about, in this particular instance, working with, I used to be a lead therapist at a behavioral health agency in Atlanta when I was living there. And we're talking about painting specifically right now as a medium of art. And I'm thinking of music. Musicians are often referred to as artists, musical artists. And I remember working with a teenager, we'll call him Denzel. He was 14 years old and he was on the spectrum of autism, and he had some challenges just letting down his walls in terms of our therapeutic relationship. And what I would do in order to break down some of the barriers was get some of his favorite music, and we would just sit and listen to it. Sometimes our whole sessions would just be us listening to the music that he wanted to listen to, and attempting to have conversations about what felt good to him when he heard the music, what words did he like, what phrases, what beats did he appreciate. And it really opened up some space for him to begin trusting me. And I believe that that is the power of art, that art allows us to let down our guard a bit, because we all can find different meaning from any medium of art that we look at, that we create, that we listen to, because we're different people. And it builds this opportunity for us to have really creative conversations with one another about the meaning that we're making out of living and out of life. And so I really appreciate how art can bring us together, and bring us together in ways that we typically may not engage, because we have this particular medium to initiate a deeper awareness, deeper insight, and a deeper connection.
Yeah, thank you, Kyndra. In the comments, just wanted to point out, Najee did post a link in regards to the piece and the name of the artist. And someone said, Kyndra, you're such a kind and empathetic therapist. I would concur. The next piece on the screen, this is a piece in my home that I purchased in 1993 when I was a student at Howard University. Hope there's some Bisons up here. If there are, put your thumbs up so I can see you, Bison. But at the time, I had just gotten out the Army and done 4 years, got out after the Kuwait War, and was lonely. I'm from California, the Bay Area, and I couldn't see my family. My grandmother meant everything to me. Echo a Bison, I see you, Jordan. But she was my world, and she was the reason, I would argue, the reason I'm still alive today. She encouraged me to leave the situation I was in and the things that I was doing to pursue a better life. But I stumbled across a gallery one day and saw this piece by Charles Bibbs, and it just reminded me of my grandmother. It was about the only good thing them Sallie Mae student loans did. They paid for this piece. And everywhere I lived as a student, even if I didn't have wall space, I would sit it so that whenever I woke up, I could see it and think about my grandmother and be encouraged to, you know, continue to push through college. And so it was a piece that, again, as we point out the impact of art, that this is a piece that reminded me of home, reminded me of someone I love and that wanted me to succeed And it still is, I can see it across the room in my home now, a constant reminder to stay focused, to do my family name proud, to bring honor to my grandmother. And so it's a beautiful piece, but it resonates with me on a very deep level. And I wanted to share it because I would imagine that many folks here have pieces of art that resonated in such a way with you that they connected to your journey, remind you of who you are, and inspire you to keep going. And so that for me was the relevance of sharing this piece. I then pivoted to collecting originals. Have a few other prints, but this is one of the pieces of art that really put me on a path to collecting back in 1993. Kendra, any thoughts you would like to share?
Absolutely. I would love for people to chime in and put in a filling word, one or two filling words that come up for you when you see this piece. Because immediately when I saw this piece, I felt warmth, I felt security. And I'm actually, it reminded me of my own grandmother. I'm actually in our family home now where and I'm sitting at the table where we would gather for family dinners when I was a young person after church. This piece makes me feel connected. And it's so interesting how art can make us feel more connected. It can make us feel more whole. I'm looking at some of the things that people are saying: love, matriarch, loving, wisdom, secure, safe. I can smell my grandmother's sweet potato pie. Come on now, Cindy. Feel protected and safe. Kenita said powerful, nurturing. Tiffany said nostalgic. This is why art is important. Jordan, I know you had a question. How important is it for us to see art on the daily for communities who don't have access to art, artistic community? Jordan, you already know that it is extremely important for us to see art on a daily. Art can support us in minimizing our depression and anxiety. It can also boost our self-esteem. And for those that don't have access to art, it continues, I feel like, to put you in a cycle of believing that you are the worst situation or your worst mistake, or just it could put you in a place where you're unable to see beyond your circumstances because you just don't have access to that conversation partner that is art. Romal, how do you feel about that question that Jordan asked?
I think it's a very important question because like in inner city communities where I grew up, and even in rural communities, there are people who don't have access to seeing art daily. And in fact, one of the things I've learned to really value by hanging out with Najee, when we're riding around town, he'll catch a moment where there's a family moving, and he sees that moment as a piece of art, where we're riding down the street and he'll see something on the side of the street as a piece of art. And in essence, our environments are sending us stories about who we are and who we can become. So if our environments are rough and the environment is not aesthetically pleasing because of issues related to poverty or what have you, it can send the message that you're not enough, that society doesn't care enough about you. So it's important, and for those of us who love art and those of you who are artists, when those opportunities present themselves to create murals or visual expressions of art that remind our people of who they are in the world, to take those opportunities and put those visual images up on buildings. And, Najee did a piece, a resistance piece because of a factory. I believe it was in Arkansas. I can't remember where it was, but it was to stand in opposition to something that was happening in a community. And through the art, it conveyed a message that said what this factory was doing was not good for the community. But there are displays of art through murals and other ways that we can put them in places that remind people of who they really can become in the world, because there's something about the beauty of art and color that lifts the spirit and makes a person stand up taller. I think when we have opportunities to take young people or people of all ages to galleries to explore, BAIA is opening June 18th and 19th. Just wanted to drop that in there. But it's a place in an African-American community in the city of East Point that will convey beauty to the neighborhood. It has a sculpture garden. And as you drive past BAIA, you cannot miss the flowers, the plants, the trees, the art, the garden art that's out there. And daily people stop and look, and people want to walk through. There are paths that people can walk and just take it in. And it sends a message to the community, one, that this is a business that chose them. And then two, that it's seeking to not only do good in their community, but to send messages that remind them of who they are and their descendants of people who are of greatness. So I think that it's an important question. It's something that we need to be mindful of in certain communities where they don't have access, and realize what that does to their emotional state and who they believe they can become in the world.
I wanted to jump in. I absolutely agree with you. I'm glad that you mentioned that word aesthetics and the importance that plays in our mental well-being. There is research, a science that's called neuroaesthetics, which uses brain imaging, brainwave technology, and biofeedback to gather scientific evidence of how we respond to the art. So, and that's just to say that art is an evidence-based practice and approach to taking care of our mental health and our well-being. And I also really appreciate how art can connect us to our ancestry, which is what you mentioned, Romal. And I think that's so important. I'm looking at Zora Neale Hurston behind you, and how that image gives me strength and empowers me in terms of what I can do and believe myself to be able to achieve, because I'm able to see that image behind you. So thank you for bringing those words into the space.
Yeah, thank you. I want to pivot to the next image. So this is a piece I actually found on Black Art in America's website, By Black Art, where I just wanted to identify images from different contexts and different artists. And when I saw this, I stopped. Again, as someone who engages in daily meditation and contemplative practices alongside prayer, I have images that convey this message. I don't own this piece, but it's something that I would own because it sends the message to pause, to breathe, to be still, and it speaks to calmness. And so there are images like this that I think have value, that you can walk by when you're feeling angst, and it can speak to you and call you to pause and be still and breathe and to step back. As my therapist would say, where you are is not who you are. And he says, when you remember who you are, that's when you'll be able to make where you are change. And so it's images like this that make me think of those things, like remember who you are. And the only way sometimes you can do that is to pause and, just be still, meditate on those things that remind you of your greatness and of your power, the things that you have overcome in the past that will remind you of what you're going to do again. And so this was an image that resonated with me in that way, the stillness and the calmness of it. Kyndra, is there anything you would like to share?
Yeah, I love this image. I want to invite everyone again to put in the chat what feelings this elicits for you as you look at this piece. I love that the butterflies are around her as she is looking up to the sky or to the stars. All of my art is in storage right now because I'm in the midst of transition at a crossroads. So I have been going out in the backyard where it's full of greenery and trees and birds. I love love the sound of nature. So this makes me think of all of that. And I'm looking at what you all are putting in the chat: peace of mind, imagination. The peace is fire, absolutely. Spirit, creation, grace, grounded, strength, tranquil beauty, oneness, free, calm, peace, evolution. I love that. Metamorphosis, transformation, self-trust, connected. I love how all of this comes from this one piece. And I think that's the genius of art, and Black art particularly. There's some visceral feelings that come up for all of us when we see this piece. So thank you, Romal.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's I love the comments and what people are gleaning from the piece. DK, if we could go to the next image. So this is a Doheny warrior piece. It's actually a brother in Cuba, pre-pandemic. I used to go to Cuba quite often, and his name is Yacel Canalias, and he did this piece. I absolutely love it. It's in the foyer of my home. It's intentionally placed to send a number of messages when people walk into my house. Lets them know that I'm proud of my culture, and that it's, for me, I call her the guardian. You know, the Doheny warriors, for people who don't know, they were the all-female military for the king in Benin during colonization, and they were a very great army. And they're actually Doheny women tribes to this day. Obviously, the community looks different, and they're no longer soldiers. But these women were fierce fighters and warriors and won many battles. And in fact, the fictitious Amazon women actually come from the real life Doheny warriors. And so just looking at her strength, again, in my life, because of my grandmother, I've always honored women in leadership. And so for me to have such a confident, strong woman in the foyer of my home sends that message too, that I honor the greatness of the women in our culture. And I personally don't think God created anything more beautiful than the Black woman. And so to have a strong Black woman present and highly visible in my home, to remind me of courage, to remind me that I'm protected, and to remind me of the strength of my culture and the people in it. It's just an image that it's one of my favorite pieces in the house. And those are some of the things that it gives me when I look at it. And, you know, people are always captivated by that piece when they come into the house. So Kyndra, I'll pivot to you for any thoughts.
Thank you. This piece, I echo everything that you just said. You said it so well, Romal. For me, it reminds me of the intrinsic strength that we all have as divine beings living a human experience. And I don't believe that we tap into our power as much as we can as divine vessels. So I am grateful for this piece. Every time that I come to your home and I see this piece, it gives me more self-confidence, which I think that is the purpose of art at times, is to remind us of who we are and what we have in us. So thank you for this piece, Romal.
Yeah, and again, we invite you guys to, ladies and gentlemen, to post in the comments what that piece, if you go back to it.
Absolutely.
Go back to that piece and just share what comes to you when you see this piece. I'm really curious to folks think power, focus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fierce, my ancestors. Protector, badass. Yes, Kenita.
That's what I'm talking about.
Protection, lineage. A daughter of Nanny of the Maroons, Ashe. Inner strength, Wakanda forever. Yes.
Yes.
Beauty, strength, courage.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what it does for me, all of those things. We could go to the next piece, DK. Generational power. That's right. The feminine divine principle. So this piece, again, I got this in Cuba. Yacel did this piece, and it's in one of the bedrooms in the house. I think that how light and things like that come into our places of rest has to be very intentional. What are the images that allow you to calm down and be still? And so this piece speaks to rest and peace. And it was intentionally placed in a bedroom so that it can speak to the idea of rest and calmness and leaving work out of that space, and positioning oneself to really step away from the day and honor yourself by creating that space to be alone or to be at peace, and to turn everything off, put the phone on mute and put it in a drawer or something, so that you can honor your body with rest. And so a part of the mental health journey that I think we oftentimes miss in a culture that's driven by this idea of hustle and grind and more, it creates anxiety and pressure, and in many ways resistance to what is actually already yours. I tend to believe that the idea of hustle is resistance language to prosperity, because hustling and grinding is pressure, right? Hustling assumes you're chasing something. If it's mine, I don't have to chase it. It's coming from me. As my therapist used to tell me, he said, Romal, your dream wants you just as much as you want your dream. If you stop chasing it and just allow yourself to be opening to receive, rather than thinking you have to run after something, because chasing it suggests that you still in some way don't believe you're worthy of it. And if you were just still enough to accept what's already yours and do the work, but walk in the greatness and anticipation, you'll stop hustling and grinding and working so hard, and just release to the fact that what is for me is coming from me. I'm going to work intentionally, and I'm going to rest intentionally, because it's already coming. So I can put the phone away. I can give myself a vacation. I can just be still and meditate, because what is destined for me is already coming for me, and I just have to be patient. And so pieces like that offer these types of things to me. So Kyndra, is there anything you would like to share?
I'm looking at these comments. Y'all felt that. Deborah said, woo! Angela's, y'all, thank you for these comments. Thank you for Romal dropping into the space how art allows us to slow down. It allows us to release ourselves from the hustle and bustle of living. When we can slow down and take deep breaths, it oxygenates our brain cells and helps us get into a more relaxed state, so we can be still. I think oftentimes when we are in a crossroads experience of living, we can be betwixt and between and feel anxiety because of it, because we're not slowing down. But when we can have art around us, that invitation to behold, and beholding is a type of mindfulness, just to behold the beauty of a piece can support you in your well-being, and really help you eventually make the decisions that you need to make, and allow it to come to you, that you don't have to control your experience and maneuver things to get to where you want. It can just be in flow. And I love how art can help us get to the flow of living, where we can center and settle down into ourselves and relax into who we are, and allow the things that are coming forth, that are drawn to us, that are aligned with us, to come, while other things are released that need to be released in the ways that we need to be whole. So thank you for this piece, Romal. What feelings come up when you all see this particular piece? Any feelings come up for this piece?
Let's see. I did.
Self-love, peace and purpose.
Yes.
Peace. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a beautiful piece. Self-love, self-care, sensuality, calm. Life is rich. I love that. Relaxed. A future time when all things will slow down. Ashe, magnificent, stillness, gratitude. I love those.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for typing those things into the chat that I think add value to all of us who see those comments, that I believe in some of the comments are speaking to some of the things people need to start doing. Offering yourself self-love and trust and gratitude, and that stillness, and recognize the magnificence that is already in you, and name it and claim it for yourself. Sometimes we need to speak those and affirm ourselves. I am magnificent, and realize that it is okay to honor your greatness, because I think sometimes society and even our jobs will try to instill in us this false sense of humility that says you cannot own your greatness, because that's prideful. And there is an upside in a capitalistic society that can keep people of brown skin hue to not honor their greatness and to play small so that they can feel comfortable. But I think that in many ways, we need to step into our greatness. And it's not prideful. It's just a reminder that you were created with greatness in you. And it's just time to live into it and to affirm it for yourself until other people catch on. So I want to pivot. I am a public speaker, and I can get lost in a thought. So I'm gonna pause on that. But I wanted to share this piece. This actually, it continues the thought I was just sharing. That's my Baldwin. This is a piece that I do own. I'm an author, and my third book is coming out soon. And in fact, this piece was in my office, and all of last year, whenever I was working on that book, I would sit at the chair where this piece was above me and behind me, and kind of channel Baldwin. I'm very much an introvert in public, so I resonate with Baldwin and his journey in so many ways. He wasn't much for small talk. There were too many great issues that he was trying to address in the world. In many ways, some would argue that Baldwin was misunderstood, but he was one of the most brilliant minds in our culture. But this piece, the intricacies of this photo montage are just amazing. If you're not familiar with the photo montage process, basically what that is, in layman's terms, if you will, everything you see in this piece, from the light in the ceiling itself, the records to the left on the wall, the flowers, the light on the table, the typewriter, the tie and suit that Baldwin has on, everything in here did not exist together. Like, these were all separate things, every portion of the wall, everything in the room. And the only true piece that existed was Baldwin's image, his face. And Najee brought all of these different pieces together to create this scene that is a timeless moment. So this is not a real room that Baldwin sat in. This is an artist using the gift to create this room, using a variety of things that he found along the way to create the textures, the mood of the room, the light of the room. And that's what I love about the photo montage process. It is extremely detailed. It takes a lot of time and positioning things in the right places, and so that it conveys the mood and idea that you want it to convey. But the most beautiful thing I really love about the photo montage is that, Najee has told me there have been times where he could see a discolored leaf or a discolored coin on the ground and pick it up, and later it will show up in a piece of art. And so he's constantly collecting things, seeing that if put in the right position with the other pieces that are in the right place, this can become a thing of beauty. And what I like about that and thinking about life is that it shows me that nothing gets wasted on this journey. As a person of faith myself, I just see how God can repurpose and reuse things that other people thought had no value, things that people threw away, that someone else can pick up and turn into a work of art, something that's elegant, something that's timeless, and without someone taking the time to pay enough attention to look closely and keep their mind open, a moment would be missed. But because of the artist's mind, and for me, how the creator works, nothing is wasted. And with time and the appropriate positioning, a thing of beauty can be created. And so I think that's just not only the way art works, I just think that's the way our lives work. Some of the things that are discarded, some of the challenges, are actually pieces that come together to create a masterpiece. So this is one of my favorite pieces. Kendra, anything you'd like to share?
I love this piece. Definitely all things can work together for our good, depending on how we perceive a thing. And I'm like you, Romal, no matter what I deem as bad or good, it always works for my evolution and becoming. And thank you for walking us through the process of photo montage. I'm wondering if I want to put Najee on the spot. I don't know if he's on, but I would love to hear his inspiration behind this piece. Najee, you there?
I'm trying to take it all in. I'm enjoying y'all conversation, man. Romal, I just put a whole case of Kleenex to the side, brother. You had me teeing up over here. Nothing gets wasted on this journey. That's a tunism. No, really just admiration. I mean, a lot of I do a lot of pieces with the narrative of lesser known figures who have contributed to our culture. And so I really hadn't done many popular images. I mean, many popular people, but BAIA just resonated. I got to binging on a number of his lectures or debates and just learning more about him and seeing how so many of my colleagues, were doing their version of BAIA. So I said, man, let me get in where I fit in. You know what I'm saying? And so I just wanted to do my version. And that's why I call this my BAIA, because everybody else doing theirs. So it's real simple with me a lot of the times. But yeah, just wanted to contribute where I could and pay homage to our good brother.
Thank you, Najee.
So much, Najee. Someone said, I'm particularly digging the socks and the shirt. Absolutely. Digging all the fine details. Feels like he's channeling from many dimensions. Was just observing his foot in the circle. Made me think of a portal, as if he's channeling energy from somewhere else. I love that, Shambu.
Yeah. Is there anything else that people want to share that comes to mind for them on this piece? I think this was the last piece as well for BK as people share. We have one more, okay? I forgot about this one, but let's take in the thoughts from that piece. Yeah, the mood is rich. It definitely is in that Baldwin piece. The work directly from the artist. Indeed it is. Sacred space, absolutely. Wisdom. Yeah, he is indeed a legend. Right, I want to be in that room, right? Najee, are they the elements added digitally or fixed in the image?
It was completely digital. It was, as my good colleague and friend Bisa Butler would say, there's no paint on this. When she do her quilts on those photo montages, there's no paint. It's all completely digital.
The room references history and memories, indeed. I see I'm working on a vision board right now. Yeah, vision boards are, again, they are works of art. They're the images. I have two vision boards. I'll just share real quick. I have a vision board for finances. Now, it's not just about money I want, but it's about money I plan to give. I believe that the cycle of money and the flow of money requires generosity. So there's an economic vision board, but then there's also a life journey vision board, the places in the world that I want to visit. And I never erase anything from them. So I've visited probably now maybe 23, 24 countries, and I don't erase them. Each place that I want to go, once I visit, I then write thank you next to it. And so I keep all of the places there to remind me of what I've done and also to remind me of what's possible. When I'm generous, I take every thank you note or card that I get from organizations or individuals, and I tack them to my vision board to remind me of how important and impactful generosity is in the lives of other people. And then it allows me to just live into it, to see that gratitude that others have had because of the generosity I've offered, but then the generosity that the Creator gave me to afford me the resources. So it's not just in the giving that other people are generous, are expressing gratitude. I'm grateful that I had enough to give. And so two vision boards, I would suggest something around the desires you have on your journey, but then one around money, a vision board around money, and allow it to shape how you move as it relates to money. So this piece here is one of my favorites for a lot of reasons. I had been looking for this piece for years and could not find it. And when I bought my home, turns out that my next door neighbor was Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian. And I remember the day he came into my driveway and introduced himself. And from that day, I would go next door and just sit with him and just listen to him talk and ask questions and hear stories, down to the point where I felt honored when he asked, he would sit down. He always was dressed up and wasn't leaving the house. CT was in his mid-90s. And one day he came down to just sit and talk with me. He had his dress shoes on and he couldn't tie his shoes. And he said, the older I get, the harder simple things like this become for me. And I said, sir, if you don't mind, it would be an honor to tie those shoes for you. And he said, no. And I just went, I did it, and he thanked me. And about a year later, when he passed, his daughter came over with this piece and said, Daddy knew how much you loved it and wanted you to have it. Not only did she give me this piece, but she gave me a photo where he was presenting the piece at an event. And in that photo, he's there with Dr. Dorothy Height, and he was wearing this purple tie. And so she gave me the piece of art, the photo, and the tie that he was wearing that day. And so it's just, this piece is special to me because a giant in our culture. I told him once, I would not even be able to live in the house I live in were it not for the work you put in for our people. And so I just, it's one of those pieces that is in a bedroom for me. The baptism of the Ethiopian eunuch, you can see the layers of his immersion from the baptism in this piece. So those are my thoughts on the piece and why it's special to me. I think for all of us, art has its various reasons for why it's special and why it has deep meaning beyond the beauty of the piece, but the journey to acquire it and the people it connects us to. Kendra, is there anything you would like to share?
Yeah, when I think of the Ethiopian eunuch, I automatically think of the biblical narrative. This Ethiopian eunuch had a conversion experience. And I think art in and of itself allows us to have conversion moments, particularly when we need it, when we need to transition out of a feeling that may not feel good at the moment, when we need to transition into something more life-giving, when we need to have our own conversion moments to allow us to access the wholeness within us, is what this piece makes me think of when I see it. And I'm wondering what you all feel when you see this piece.
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question, Shonda McGriff, in a moment. She was saying, this is beautiful. That's beautiful, but how big is your vision board if you include every thank you note? So every year, here's what I do. It is a whiteboard. I have two whiteboards, the finance and the life purpose things. And around the edges is corkboard. And so I tack up all of the thank you notes. I even tack up, the places I want to give each month, and then I'll take those down and give to those organizations. One of those is the Atlanta Mission. I started giving it to them during the pandemic because I knew when there were people who were being abused, who were now going to have to quarantine with their abusers. And I was thinking about young people who I knew were going to run away from home, and Atlanta Mission would end up housing them. And so I started giving so that the mission could make space and have provision for runaways. And turns out they were sending me letters letting me know that they were busting at the seams because of it. But I give to a number of other places. One deals with decreasing recidivism amongst Black males. They have a 95% success rate. But every year, I'd keep them up there all year. And at the end of the year, I take down all those thank you cards. I put them in a folder and I put them away, and then I start the new year. So whatever comes in from January to December goes up, it's tacked up there. And then at the end of the year, I take all those down, put them away, and then the next year starts. So that's how I do it. So it does take up some space, but it's positioned so that whenever I'm walking out my office, I pass both of those vision boards. And I just love seeing those thank you cards and expression of gratitude. And even when people are praying for me, they may write me a prayer and send it to me. I'll tack those up there too, to remind myself of, just that connection as well. So this piece, Kyndra, you want to go back to, we were reading some of the comments.
Grateful, feels a sense of community, Jordan says. Celebration, higher power, reminds me of a divine oracle, liberation, glory, ascension, and joy. AQ said this piece reminds me of the day I got baptized, the power of water. Beautiful work. We should always keep learning. Thank you all for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. So this was the last piece. We have time. We are still on time. We have about 7 minutes for any questions that you might have for not only Kyndra and I, but perhaps for Najee. Oh, someone, okay. So Najee asked me to share about Selah R&R. I'm going to do that. So Selah, real quick, just over a year ago, we acquired 5 acres of land. Kyndra, can you type the website to Selah into the chat?
Yes.
We acquired 5 acres of land. The way that happened was I prayed 3 years ago at the beginning of the year. I was turning 50, I'm 52. And I was like, God, I want to be a part of something that's going to outlive me, a legacy project where I can walk alongside other people to build something that we could all be proud of, that will add value to the lives of people who come after us. And so the vision was for Selah. The link is in the chat. One day I had a dream about who to ask for the money. I called him. I said, here's the vision. It's a place of intentional rest and holistic health. It's a boutique hotel and resort. Pray about it and see what you should do to support it. 10 days later, he called me and said, God told me to send you $250,000. The land was $300,000. The owners came down to $250,000. And we bought it from a Ghanaian church that owned that land on Campbellton Road in the city of South Fulton. And turns out I've been doing work in Ghana for 2 years, and then here I was buying land from a Ghanaian church in Georgia. So Selah, you can go to the link and learn about it. If you want to learn about any projects, Kyndra, you want to put your website in there.
Sure.
I will try to put in the link for my upcoming book. It is called I Wish My Dad, The Power of Vulnerable Conversations Between Fathers and Sons. It's co-authored my son and I, and it's interviews and stories from 17 men about their relationships with their fathers as it relates to love, affection, and time. Here's a link to pre-order the book. Publishers Weekly just came out with an article on it today, but you can pre-order it now. But yeah, it's called I Wish My Dad. But are there any questions we can answer for all of you before we go? Somebody said this was so dope. Thank you for this. You're welcome. Thank you for naming.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Yes.
From London. Yes, I have a question. I was curious as to whether you think there should be more art in places of worship.
That's interesting. Well, personally, yes. And I think there should be accurate cultural representations because much, I'll give you a quick example. In my grandmother's house, I saw white Jesus. He looked like the lead singer of the Bee Gees. And most of my life, I thought that's what he looked like. But then the more I learned about the Middle East and Palestine and the area, I realized like this is not an accurate depiction. In fact, when I go to Cuba, what I see in religious life amongst the descendants of Nigeria and other places, you will see images that reflect their spirituality that are in alignment with their cultural identity. So their cultural connection to their spirituality was not lost, and they've redeemed it in ways that connect to their spirituality. So yes, I think that, you know, houses of worship are tricky, but I personally think that if there is art in it, let it be empowering for all people and not just some people, and let it be honoring cultural representations that give life to all people. So absolutely. I see a hand up. I'm not going to pronounce your name correctly. I'm just going to say Miss Parker.
It's Emicia. I just have to say, this has been like Thanksgiving dinner, this entire event. I'm a longtime supporter of Najee on Facebook from before I deactivated, and I've been a longtime visitor of Black art in America. So actually seeing your community, I am blown away. I'm a classically trained fine artist. I'm launching my own art company next month. And I'm just trying to figure out, how can I be more connected to your community? How can I be a part of your community? Because I love it here and I don't want to leave.
Najee, that's a question for you, brother.
Oh man, Emicia, thank you. I appreciate you and everyone else. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, everybody that's here and everybody that we work hard to share our culture with, you know, we're all family and we're all just trying to do good work. Reach out, you know, since you can email me at najeedorsey@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out, please. If you're able to attend the grand opening weekend, come through. We're trying to get as many beautiful faces in our art space as possible. But yeah, let's just connect and continue to build and love on each other. That's what we need right now.
Absolutely.
I definitely will. And one last thing, when you spoke about the art, it made me think church art. It made me think about the Coptic churches and the Coptic church art that actually is Ethiopian. Ethiopia has not been colonized, and some of the oldest Bibles that we have are from Ethiopia. So I agree with you 1,000,000%.
Yeah, the Coptic church is actually the oldest church in the world. I actually have the Coptic cross tattooed on my arm, but absolutely. Jordan Stewart has a question.
Yes. Thank you. This is awesome. All the things. Shout out to Howard University, of course. And my question leans into that. So I'm a drama therapist by trade, using theater as therapy for communities, particularly Black communities. How important is it to study the art in these institutions like our undergrads or even divinity schools? I'll say that, like at Candler, I didn't find the intersection as strong of spirituality and the arts, so I had to kind of create my own curriculum. And I'm advocating for that for artists who want to kind of study this. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think Najee can speak to that too. His journey as an artist in education, I believe he quit the first week because it wasn't in alignment with his journey. Sometimes you don't need the institution, and sometimes you have to remember that institutions of higher learning have agendas, right? And depending on where you go will shape the story they want you to learn and the story they want to tell. So you have to be mindful of that as well when you pick a place of higher learning to learn about art and history. It's kind of like whose art and whose history. So identify places that are honoring the truth of the artistic journey and artistic expression is a part of that. In terms of seminaries, it's the same thing. You know, religious schools of education have an agenda, and, you know, their idea of God and what they think you should know about God and teach about God is based on an agenda. And so you want to pick places that are really about the whole truth and not just one culture or one denomination's idea of the truth. If it's not empowering everybody, it's the first sign that it's probably not the right place to be. But if it needs somebody to hate, it's not really God, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. These are not the opinions and expressions of Black art in America. This is just Romal Tune.
I totally agree.
Are there any other questions?
I see we got a few more hands that are raised, but I want to, I did see a message about how often are we going to do this. I would love to, if y'all want to throw in the chat, you know, we haven't been using our Zoom account frequently. We're looking to be more active and having more engaged conversations. If you're down for us getting together on a more frequent basis than what we have been in the past, please let us know in the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are at, see, Margaret Lee, I don't want to leave without answering your question. Margaret, we'll take this question, and we do want to honor the time so that as we do these, we want people to know that when you come, we won't take up your whole evening. But you can follow us on Instagram. It's Romal Tune, or you can see it on my name. Kendra's is there as well as Najee's. But with that, Margaret, did you have a question?
Yeah, the question that I had, well, first of all, thank you for taking my question. First of all, I don't even know how I got on here, but I am an art lover. And then secondly, are you guys in Atlanta or you're somewhere else? You mentioned about opening.
Yes, Black Art in America. The gallery is opening the weekend of Juneteenth. That's the 18th and 19th.
Okay.
Of June, in the city of East Point. You can.
Okay, I know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, pull up. We'll be celebrating all day on both days. If you go to the Black Art in America website, or you go to the IG, you can get more details about the grand opening, Juneteenth.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I know who sent that to me, because I'm a design student, so you know I graduated from the Art Institute and for interior design and architecture. And one thing that I remember in all of our art classes, there was very few studies of Black art that used to bother a lot of us Black students. You know, so I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that, but there'll be lots of opportunities and programs at BAIA. Before we go, Najee, I want to pitch to you for any closing remarks. I'll have some, and then Kendra, I'll let you close us out with your closing remarks. But
yeah, well, first of all, again, I want to thank everybody for coming this evening and giving us your time and your energy and your love. I want to thank Romal and Kendra for such an engaging conversation. I really appreciate and value you both. Love and blessings from Black Art in America. That's all I got.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. It's a Thursday evening. You thought this was worthy of your time to register and show up. Probably didn't have dinner yet, but we're just grateful for all of you. Someone mentioned this is a community. It feels like Thanksgiving. Well, that means we did our job, because that is the spirit of Black art in America. It is definitely a community. Najee is all about community, as am I and Kendra. So we are just grateful for your presence, the energy you brought, the comments that you shared that I believe will continue to speak life to people who were here. I feel pretty confident that we met a need tonight. And if that is the case, our job is done. And I just want to express my gratitude for all of you and for Najee creating this space for us. Kendra?
I want to say namaste to each and every one of you all. I honor the divine beings that are in each of you. So grateful that you all came and joined us on this Thursday evening. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be present in this conversation. Not only was this a conversation to talk about art and mental health, but it's an invitation for you to be reminded to take care of your mental health and your wholeness. So I hope that you're doing that. And if you're not, this is a reminder to start taking care of you. And we look forward to staying connected with you all.
And with that, thank you all and have an amazing night. Remember your greatness and live with the art you love. Peace.
Peace.